Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Canadian Football Central, CFL content for the fans, by the fans, and we have our Week 3 review coming right up. Just finished. It's funny, we're actually recording this just after the last game of the week, just after the Bomber game, the Bomber Winnipeg BC game, the Saturday night, and we'll be uploading this the next day on the Sunday. And wow, Rick, we still another good week of predictions for us. I went 4-0 last week. You went 3-1 last week. And then this week, we both go 3-1 on our predictions. So pretty good for the most part. I know you were telling me you were pleased that because Hamilton had a bye week, they did not get a loss. So there is that.
No, we did not.
Whereas some other teams out in the East got a loss. Shall we get right into it?
We shall.
Well, one of the teams that did not get a loss out in the East was the Montreal Alouettes. The Alouettes defeated the Edmonton Elks by a score of 38-28. And my goodness, this game for a while was looking like a complete blowout until the Elks were able to somehow get 22 points in the fourth quarter, but it was just too little too late. So, Rick, shall we start with your thoughts in the game?
I mean, my whole thing has Trey Ford regressed is the question. Because until that fourth quarter, they had only scored 6 points in the whole game.
Yeah, no, literally all that they had before that was Blanchard had a 42 and a 32-yard field goal in the first and second respectively. Now, the good news for Blanchard is that he does go 2 for 2 on field goals, which is very good because that was a bit of a problem beforehand. And he had gotten the PAT both times they went for it because they went for a 2-point conversion on their first touchdown in the fourth quarter. This is the Edmonton Elks. So Blanchard had a good game. He needed to because this was looking ugly for Edmonton, and we had a bit of uncertainty about Blanchard going into this. Davis Alexander, 20 for 24, 245 passing yards, 10.2 yards on average, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Now he would leave with a injury. Is that correct?
Hamstring.
And do we know the status upon the length and kind of the idea?
We do not until practice this week.
Okay, so we will cover that in our Week 4 preview. Now, with the Alouettes, they do have a game, so they don't have a bye week. They are playing. They'll be playing actually the Ticats in this coming week.
Which
so we will in that preview.
Alexander does not play.
Yeah, so we will have to see if we have an update come the point that we do make that video, but he's unknown. McLeod Bethel Thompson would finish this game. He goes 6 for 8, 77 passing yards, 9.6 yards on average, so he just kind of played fine. Lead rusher for Montreal Alouettes, Sean Thomas Erlington, 11 rushes, 63 rushing yards, 5.7 yards on average, so not too bad there. He gets himself a rushing touchdown. And for the passing game, Dallaire, Philpott, and Sneed get the 3 passing touchdowns here for the Alouettes. Tyson Philpott, 8 receptions, 96 receiving yards. Rambo, though, a week after missing a game for his wedding, getting married, got 3 receptions for 77 yards, with his longest being a 54-yard pass. And then again, Sneed with 4 receptions, 64 receiving yards for 1 touchdown. So good game for him there. Maltos, 3 for 3, got 4 extra points. All in all, not bad here from Montreal. Montreal's looked pretty good. Burns, most tackles here for the Alouettes with 7. And then there'd be a sack for Beverette. There'd be an interception for Ento. A sack for Oakman, a sack for Arku, and a sack for
sacks for the defense.
Adiemi Berglund. So 5 sacks for the Alouettes. So just causing problems for the Edmonton Elks offensive line. There'll be a fumble recovery, though, as well for Adiemi Berglund. And there were 2 forced fumbles, one by Burns and one by Beverette. So forced 2 fumbles, was able to recover 1 of them. So pretty good game for the Alouettes. And again, the Alouettes were the more consistent of the 2 teams here. They put up 14 in the first, 10 in the second, 4 points in the third, and then 10 in the fourth quarter. Whereas with the Edmonton Elks, it was very much kind of that last-ditch effort near the end of the game to try to get this back. So, thoughts on the game, Rick?
And it just goes to prove money cannot buy happiness. In a sense that no matter how much money you spend on defense,
see, you know, it's funny.
If you don't spend it on offense, you ain't winning jack.
It's funny. It reminds, well, it's not even just that. If you spend all that money, but the money doesn't go anywhere on defense, you still gave up over 30 points. So, like, it needs to come together to start doing something. Now, one thing of note that was very interesting, and we might actually, I honestly, now thinking about this, Rick, we might make a video on this. We'll have to see here. But a bit of news coming out of Edmonton, because this was Edmonton's first home game of the year. They have really, really gone back to kind of the Eskimos branding. With
bringing out the truck and the old mascot.
So there's a lot here. Yeah. So the Elks logo was removed from the stadium wall. There's no Elks logo on the field. And when I say Elks logo, I'm talking about strictly the Elks logo, not the one, the EE, which you can associate with both the Edmonton Elks as well as the Edmonton Eskimos. I'm talking about the new logo that they have brought in, kind of that they used alongside
the one that looks
EE.
like antlers.
Which it's a good looking logo, but they're very much trying right now to kind of go back at least to the Elks branding. The uniforms are back to the traditional colors, as we did a video on that. Got a lot of support from that. So thank you for tuning into that. If you haven't, make sure you do that. As they're pretty sharp looking uniforms. They look great. Yeah, there's no Elks anywhere on that uniform. Spike, the Elks mascot, is gone. Nanook, the old mascot of the Edmonton Eskimos, is back for the Elks. The old fire truck with the Edmonton Eskimos on the side is back, and I have heard that they have not even made any alterations to make it say Elks on the side of that.
Is it a polar bear?
Yeah, I believe it's a polar bear. It's something like that. But yeah, no. So right now the Edmonton Elks are Elks in name only, and so there's no kind of immediate. There's nothing official about that they're going to go back to the Edmonton Eskimos. And they may not. They may just try. They may just keep the Edmonton Elks name, but really kind of try to bring back.
I mean, even if you
those
think
Eskimos
about it,
fans, but we'll see. Just kind of an interesting thing to mention.
I mean, at this point, you might as well just blow up the whole team and start from scratch. Because no matter what you spend the money on, your team ain't winning nothing.
Well, and that's the thing is that these changes might be something that fans there really like, and it might help in terms of bringing people back. But in terms of the real driver of bringing people back, you need a good football team on the field. So Edmonton wasn't able to get the win today. Terrell Ford went 27 for 36, 308 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Justin Rankin, 12 rushes, 76 yards, 6.3 yards on average. Not too bad. Stephen Dunbar Jr., probably one of his better games of the Elks, 7 receptions, 97 passing yards. Curly Gittins Jr. also with 95 passing yards, 1 touchdown for him. There's a touchdown as well for Julian Grant. At the end of the day, there was it's clear that this Edmonton Elks team offensively has a bit in them. You can't not play the entire game and then try to make it all up in the fourth quarter. And the defense needs to be better. At the end of the day, I almost...
That's what I mean.
How much
like,
of this falls on your like?
Because if you think about it, okay, you've lost 2 games, 31-15 to the Lions, and 38-28.
Yeah.
So in 2 games, you've given up over 30 points.
I'm not gonna lie. If I'm the Edmonton Elks, I'm going to JC Sherritt, the defensive coordinator, and kind of being like, what's going on here? Seriously, you spent like $500,000 on Jared Brinkman and Jake Seresna, 2 proven great defensive linemen. You have Nick Anderson, one of the best linebackers in the league. He got the most tackles out of anyone last year. He was rookie of the year. He's young. He's great. He's excellent. You had Terrell Ford, who had a breakout, incredible year with the Bombers. You have all this talent in the secondary, to the linebackers, to the defensive line, and you just can't keep getting it done. So there's a part of me that would look at the coaching staff. Something's got to change. Something's got to give here.
How do I put this in a scenario that people would understand? If I was to compare this to a hockey team, I would compare it to the Toronto Maple Leafs. No matter how much money you throw at these players, they still cannot get the job done.
Yeah.
Are we gonna go on like another 10-game losing streak like before? Well, no, it's home games, but still.
And that's the thing. Like the thing I'm struggling with is it's not like J.C. Sherritt was not talented when he was a player for Edmonton. Played 2016 through 2018. He got 100 defensive tackles in his last year, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, and a forced fumble. Like I'm not saying that he's not a good player, but like it's just. He played for that franchise for at least like 6 years, but that doesn't always translate to coaching. Sometimes people who are not great players are great coaches. Sometimes people who are great players just don't turn out to be the coaches you need them to be.
Here's the other thing is 2 things. A, how long do you put Killam's leash on, because he's already 0-2 before you think of coaching changes. And 2, he was the Calgary Stampeders special team coach. I'm like, yeah, you can say Rick Campbell went to BC and Rick Campbell did well for 2-3 years, but Rick Campbell also had.
Oh, we lost Rick here. We lost Rick here for a second. Oh, we got him back. Rick, we just got you back here. You were talking about Rick Campbell.
Yeah, so like I was saying, when Rick Campbell was in BC, he had Nathan Rourke.
Yes.
Killam has Trey Ford. But I mean, Trey Ford's not Nathan Rourke. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah, again, but I don't think as much. Like, listen, like here's my thing. Offensively, they need to be better. But still, they got 28 points, despite the way they got it, despite the fact that they really did not offensively get what they needed to until the fourth quarter. They got 28 points. 28 points should be enough to win you a football game. If you're giving up almost 40 points, you can't win. Like, the defense needs to be better. The defense is the area of the Edmonton Elks that have this great potential, but they're just not living up to it. So that's where I guess I am. So all in all, shall we get on to the next one? We've been going on this one.
Let's get on to this shit show of a game that was called Friday Night Football.
The Saskatchewan Roughriders defeated.
Where do we even start with this?
The Toronto Argonauts by a score of 39-32. And we'll get to the end of the game eventually, because that's the part that everyone's talking about. We'll talk a little bit about the Dinwiddie presser, and we might honestly do a separate video on it because of just how insane it is.
This is what kills me, is if you haven't watched this game, I went back and I analyzed this game. There was, let me pull it up on my phone because I actually wrote it down. So, in the first quarter alone, there was one 15-yard penalty. In the second quarter alone, there was 7 15-yard penalties. In the third, there was 2. And in the fourth, there was 2. There was over 300 yards in penalties between 2 teams. That's the size of 3 football fields.
Yeah.
Just like, ridiculous. We're not just talking, offside. That's not. We're talking like shoving after the whistle. Like, I honestly thought that I missed a Ticat game, and this was Ticats and Toronto playing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, just crazy stuff. But like, if we're going here, so firstly, like, because Saskatchewan gets off to an early hop, 14-7 coming out of the first quarter. And then the game really kind of slows down for a while. Both teams putting up a field goal in that second quarter with a Haralahu hitting a 56, Lothar hitting a 16. And then later on, we get some of the issues that they had with Brett Lothar in the Hamilton game, where Lothar misses one. He would miss a 33-yarder. Now, he gets a single on this. Now, interesting thing to note here, he doesn't get a great hold by the holder here. However, it's not a garbage hold either. It's a hold that you probably could get a field goal off of, but certainly not that prime, beautiful hold that you'd really hope for. But like Brett Lothar missed. He missed a couple field. No, he missed one, but then
and he missed a single. Didn't he miss an extra point?
And he might have missed an extra. Let's see here.
Because they only have 5 extra points.
Because let's see here. Lothar made the PAT on the Stevens touchdown. He made it on the Mary Walford touchdown. He made it on the Dante Myers touchdown. Nope. No, he hit them all. He hit all the PATs.
I could have.
Yeah, or I don't know why. It's funny. The score app has the extra point listed at 0, so they fucked that up. But whatever. But yeah, Trevor Harris, 13 for 17, 234 passing yards, 13.8 yards on average, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. So not too bad for him. 17 rushes for AJ Ouellette, 5.4 on average, but they really were going at that a lot. AJ Ouellette with 1 touchdown, Tommy Stevens with a rushing touchdown, 2 passing touchdowns for Dante Myers. Myers kind of the standout receiver for them today. 4 receptions, 125 passing yards. So really...
longest was 70.
Now, was Emelis hurt or no?
Yes, Emelis was not playing.
Okay, because I was about to say, I don't see him on here, so I'm assuming that's why. Keyshawn Johnson and Picton got a little bit, but not a whole lot. Mario Alford, fantastic. And again, he kind of got the dagger for them. So for those who did not see the game, the way this game finished was Saskatchewan had a decent lead. And Toronto is chipping away at it, really trying to get back into this game. Saskatchewan was up by 10 points. And so the Argos would hit field goal. Haralahu, 25-yard field goal. Then Saskatchewan would then at that point have a 7-point lead. They wanted to get back up to the 10-point lead, so then Brett Lothar goes for a 33-yarder. He misses this. He gets the single, though, meaning it's an 8-point lead. So now Toronto needs a touchdown, and rather than also needing a field goal, they just need to get a 2-point conversion. They get this touchdown with 23 seconds left on the clock. Mitchell with an 8-yard pass from Nick Arbuckle. But then they make the 2-point conversion. We are tied up. 23 seconds left. And then Toronto was faced with a difficult choice. When you're going on kickoff, kicking to one of the best returners in the entire CFL, or kicking to the other guy. I don't even know his name. They're like, you know what? You know the guy named Super Mario? You know the guy with the nickname Super Mario? What if we kick it to him? That turned out to be a stupid fucking thing to do. They did this. Super Mario grabs the ball, runs it all the way down. Touchdown Toronto. Touchdown Saskatchewan, sorry. And to add insult to injury, Toronto only had 11 players on the field. When in the Canadian Football League, you are allowed 12. This was a situation of where Toronto was having the notorious Saskatchewan problem of not knowing to count right number of players on the field. I'm looking at you, Saskatchewan, 13 men on the field. You don't forget it. Toronto this time, though, had 11. And it ended up that along with just... They had gotten back into this game. Toronto did, and they threw it away. And then Ryan Didwitty went into the presser after the game and decided, okay, like he decided to go full like Jean Robespierre, which for those not aware, he was the guy in the French Revolution that thought it was really cool to chop a lot of people's heads off, and decided to chop off a few heads of his own from his own team for body shaming one of his guards, saying that he was 280 pounds, which it's funny. I saw someone say that they thought it was him fat shaming, when in reality, I think he was actually saying that he was too light, because most offensive linemen are 300 pounds plus, and so he should have been gaining muscle. So said he had a lazy summer. And he was going off. And so we might do a whole video on this presser. So we're not going to go too much into that when we can talk about the full game as a whole. But this was a situation of Toronto being like getting back into it in a close game against a really good team, having an opportunity to even get a tie or something, and they just can't.
So I'm going to mention this because you completely forgot about it. Mm-hmm. The big elephant in the room. Should we bring up that chop block? Did you even see it?
I can't remember if what quarter was this in?
The chop block that Duncan Busby did on Kenneth George Jr. that took Kenneth George Jr. out of the game, and he's now on the 6th game. And then the next play after, the Toronto Argonauts players go after Trevor Harris. That's like, okay, you're going to take out one of our players, we're going to take out one of your players. A tit for tat.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw Michael Ball. Michael Ball, one of the voices of Saskatchewan. He did not like that. Not one bit.
With this game, with you already out, Winton McManus, Christmas, I think, is on the I think Christmas was on the 6th game. DeMarcus Christmas is on the 6th game. Dante McMahon, he's injured. You have Sirocco injured, Janarian Grant injured, Chad Kelly still injured. Winton McManus is now injured. Kenneth George Jr. is on the 6th game. Like, you could honestly tell that Edmonton did not have their roster, because when Toronto gives up 144 rushing yards,
yeah,
and then Nick Arbuckle did not have the greatest first half. There's people on social media when I was watching it, they're calling for Thorne to be put in the game.
Tucker Horn?
Yeah. Then you have Rider players that are wishing that Carey played in the game. You have Carey saying, oh, now Toronto knows how it feels because they made a mistake cutting him. And it's just like one big drama episode.
You're talking about...
They only had Toronto's defense only had one sack.
Yeah.
Blackburn had an interception after Toronto threw an interception. It's just one big mess. And I will put it this way. It's almost like 2024 all over again, because Chad Kelly sat out the first 9 games. And it's okay. He sat out the first 9 games. Cameron Dukes went 5-4. Nick Arbuckle is 0-3, and he won them the MVP. So if because now they're saying Chad Kelly's probably not going to play for another 2 more weeks. If Nick Arbuckle cannot turn this team around, even let's just say Chad Kelly doesn't play the next 2 games, that means you're starting out 0-5 before Chad Kelly plays. How are you going to turn that team around and make the playoffs?
Well, I think I was about to say, you need to hope that either Ottawa is now Ottawa would get a win this week, but you need to hope that Ottawa falls back into their skid, or that Hamilton can't figure their crap out by that point. which is, yeah, you'll see. It depends on the type of schedule you're dealt with.
I
But
mean,
I think if you're
our next
Toronto,
4 games are going to be key.
I think you maybe look to give Horn a shot. Not necessarily saying that you absolutely have to have him starting. This is the absolute choice to make. But I'm just saying you look decent in the preseason, and so if you kind of experimented a little, it wouldn't be the worst idea. You're playing against Ottawa next week, and you'll have to see the quarterback situation for them, as we don't know if Drew Brown will be back for that or if he won't, but we'll have to see. But all in all, 39-32 Rider victory. Shall we get into the next one, Rick?
The amazing snooze fest of the week.
Oh, yeah. The snooze fest of the week, as the Ottawa Redblacks would defeat the Calgary Stampeders 20-12 in what looked like it was going to be a 9-6 game for a while. As it looked like we wouldn't get a touchdown in this game, as it was boring.
I'm sorry. Every time I look at Crumbs' numbers, I just want to cringe.
Well, here's my thing. I understand that. I don't know if you can, like, so you got 101 passing yards, 1 touchdown, but the big elephant in the room is the 9 for 22.
That's what I'm talking about. I don't care about the 111 yards. I'm talking about the 9.
However, just hear me out here. Vernon Adams Jr., which a lot of people would put him as one of the better passers in the league. Maybe not top 3, but I mean, this was a guy we were talking about MOP potentially at some points last year. And had played, and despite the fact that he hasn't gotten a passing touchdown yet, he's got a good arm. He's a capable quarterback. You know what I mean? He's got a good run, but he's got a good pass. He very much does. He was only barely above 50% too. And he threw an interception, whereas Dustin Crum threw 1 touchdown. And he didn't throw a pick. I'm not saying that Dustin Crum is the greatest arm in the world. I am not saying that. I'm not even going to say that it's a great arm. However, I don't know how reflective this is, as if you didn't watch the game, or for those who had not watched the game, the weather in Calgary was awful today. It was abysmal.
So I wonder, even if you take out the rain weather out of the equation, after the game that Matt Schultz had last week, it makes you wonder if they just wanted to focus on running this week, because they had 230.
Well, I think when they saw the, well, firstly, yeah, I think them throwing 3 picks last week was one factor, and I think this week, like near the start of the game, both teams tried to get a little bit of the passing game going. Neither one. Now, Ottawa was able to do a little bit at the end, and even Calgary was able to get in a bit of a passing game in kind of near the end. They were able to kind of start pushing down that field a little bit, and they eventually kind of got a little bit of offense, and it was not enough, and they were able, and they threw a pick eventually. But the rushing offense was going to be what was important for today, and that's the thing. Calgary was handicapped in the sense of that their best receiver is in crutches, and so that's one factor. And the other factor is that, like, it just I don't know. They just couldn't get it. They just couldn't get it going. And I think that Calgary has shown more promise out of their receiver core than Ottawa so far. I'm not saying on paper. I'm just saying in terms of the way they've performed in the games up until now, Calgary has looked better in the receiving department. Not saying that Ottawa can't. Not saying that Ottawa doesn't have the talent to. Just think there's been a little bit more there. But
after watching this game, I was just as confused at the beginning of the game that I was at the end.
Yeah, I think
is Ottawa really that good? Or is Ottawa just that bad, and because of the rain they won? Or
well,
Calgary...
Dedrick Mills looked good. However, one thing I do have to say, the running game that was a that Ottawa couldn't get going against Saskatchewan Oh boy, they got going against Calgary. Adebaboye, 10 rushes, 96 yards, 9.6 on average, an awesome average. William Stanback, 9 rushes for 82 yards, 9.1 on average, still very good. Dustin Crum, 11 rushes for 64 yards, 5.8 on average, still above 5, almost at 6. Besides Braylon Addison, everyone had a good game rushing. So,
you know what? I actually want to see something because I'm actually quite curious.
And Adebaboye got the one touchdown. It was a passing touchdown. He passed it kind of not into the flats, a little bit above that. And then he just kind of rushed it in, and he got it. Lewis Ward, 4 for 5 on field goals on attempts. Longest, only a 34-yarder. And he got the extra point on the only one there. Brennan Paredes went 3 for 4 as I believe he had one that hit the uprights, with his longest being a 51-yard field goal, though.
When your starting quarterback goes down for 2 games, Braylon Addison leads the team with 170 yards. Justin Hardy, 158. Eugene Lewis, 136. And then the fourth one's your rookie this year with 93. Lewis has missed half of his catches, and you're paying him.
Yeah, that now the
300,000.
Now I will say, to be fair, there were at least 2 or 3 targets he got today where that ball might have been 10 feet over his head. And so it will be technically ruled as a target towards him. But I do agree with you in the sense of you're going to want a better completion percentage on him as a receiver for the amount of money you're paying him. And this is where it's really important that you're able to have a decent passing game. So if you're Ottawa, I think Drew Brown is still your number 1 quarterback, despite Dustin Crum being able to get the victory today. But I do think you might have I think Dustin Crum has earned a spot above Schultz. Not saying that he played incredible today. I just think that he didn't throw any picks in a game that would have been easier to throw picks. So I give him credit there. And he was able to provide more rushing than he was Schultz. Now, part of that also, I think, goes to the man that Rick hates, Tommy Condell, in the sense of being smart and at least to not rely on once everyone has realized that the passing game is not working, not trying to make it work when it just was clearly not, and trying to get a lot more rushes. And again, they did very well with that, with Adebaboye, with Stanback, with Dustin Crum himself. And so they just kind of adjusted there. But that's pretty much all I got. Is there anything you got? This was a pretty boring game. We want to thank everyone who joined the live stream, by the way. There was a guy he just went by Anonymous, who is a fan from the States. He's an NFL fan who is checking out this one. He's very active in the chat. Thank you to him.
Anon?
But that's short for Anonymous.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like Anon. I'm pretty sure that's short for Anonymous. But anyways, thank you to everyone who joined for this game as well as the next one, which shall we get into the last game of the week?
The one game that I was yelling at my TV screen or my monitor and Carter's just killing himself laughing. Yeah, let's get into this one.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers will sweep the BC Lions and get their second straight victory against them by a score of 27-14. Winnipeg now has played all of the, believe it or not, and we're at week 3, and Winnipeg and BC have played all the games they will play in the regular season against each other. Winnipeg winning both of them. And a lot to note for this game. So firstly, going into the game, kind of the more notable lineup changes. Zach Collaros is back for Winnipeg as his suspension was done. And so Streveler then moves to backup. Jeremiah Mazzoli is going to be started for BC as Nathan Rourke is injured. We're kind of unknown on the amount of time there. Quinton Cooley was the backup for Matthew Peterson here, although near the end of the game, they kind of started to almost rotate between the two of them, which Rick was not happy about because he had Matthew Peterson on his fantasy team. For the offensive line, Vanderpool was out at left guard, and Wallace replaced him. And so that was kind of the lineup changes going into this game. But Winnipeg got off to this game pretty hot. Very, very good first drive for for Winnipeg. Collaros he basically connected with everyone, whether it was Wheatfall, whether it was Schoen, whether it was Claricius. He connected with basically everyone except for Dembski, which he would then connect with a little later in the game. And he was able to get a touchdown here. After Strevler got the touchdown, but it didn't count because Claricius had a block, had a holding penalty on one of his blocks. Then Zach Collaros comes back in, touchdown for Dalton Schoen, which actually I did my Bomber video. You should check it out on the Nolan Hockey Podcast. The start of that video is actually a clip from the one of the original hosts, one of my co-hosts that I started this channel with back when it was called CFL Central. Jake was at the game in BC. He sent me that clip. So if you want to see a clip from the stadium of the Dalton Schoen touchdown, check it out on my Bomber video on Nolan Hockey Podcast. But Bombers went up right away. Offensive line looked very good for Winnipeg. They had their lapses today, but especially near the start, looked very, very good. The first touchdown pass of this game for Zach Collaros was his 200th career touchdown pass. So that moved Collaros into 7th all-time for career touchdown passes behind Dieter Brock, who had 210, and Bo Levi Mitchell, who has 228 and counting. So, that was Zach Collaros at 14th and Dieter Brock at 13th, and then Bo Levi Mitchell is currently at 12th. And so, Rick, shall I give you a second? Because I've been going on.
So what I would like you to do is go into the live stream and snip the points when offensive lineman Eli got the touchdown. Carter almost crapped himself.
Oh my God,
oh my Lord,
I loved it.
Eli, an offensive lineman.
So do Eli
touchdown.
With a touchdown, the offensive lineman. Because if you watch the play, which the Bombers posted on the social media, you can check it out there. The BC Lions, when they see Eli go on the adventure on his own away from the rest of the O-line, they're kind of like, okay, what's this big guy doing, you know? We're like, you know what it was? It was kind of like, it looked like kind of like the old, it was like the way that some people will look at like an old guy lost in a mall where he just doesn't know where he's going. They're like, where's this big guy going? Like he's going on an adventure of his own. And they didn't block him because they didn't cover him because they're like, well, he's an offensive lineman. Why do we need to cover him? No one thought that Zach Collaros would be psychotic enough to throw it to him, which he does. Again, Jason Hogan, I have no idea what you're cooking, but whatever the fuck it is, I would like to have some of it because it's going great. Jason Hogan has looked good at offensive coordinator. And, I mean, I'll put it this way. Jason Hogan, new offensive coordinator, going against Buck Pierce, old offensive coordinator for Winnipeg. He is 2-0. And so offense for Winnipeg was able to get a lot going. Unfortunately, Matthew Peterson, not quite the game he had last week. He had 42, but on 11 rushes, 3.8 average, not a great average. Quinton Cooley, though, 7 rushes, 42 yards as well. He had an average of 6, so we might see even a bit more Quinton Cooley next week in their game against Edmonton, potentially, unless Brady Oliveira is somehow healthy for that. For the receivers, Wheatfall really had a really good game. The panel was actually talking about some of the comparisons to Wheatfall has had in terms of the style of receiver he is to Kenny Lawler, kind of in the sense of that Wheatfall kind of looks like almost like a little bit of a young Kenny Lawler. We'll have to see. I mean, at the end of the day, he doesn't have the accolades quite that Kenny Lawler does have, but I can definitely see comparisons there. And so, you know, it's a good comparison if you're Wheatfall. He just needs to keep it up. Stearns is probably his best game yet. He only had 36 passing yards on 3 receptions. However, some of them were some pretty key ones to get the Bombers first downs. Shown again with the passing, with a receiving touchdown, as well as a pseudo Eli, which is just crazy. This is just nuts. Sergio Castillo was brilliant. He went 2 for 2 was 100% on field goals and extra points, even with one of those field goals being a 55-yarder, the second longest of this week's kicks, as the longest was Haralahu with a 56, so just 1 yard longer. And then returning, Vaval was pretty decent. Evan Holm had his best game had one of the best games in a while. 7 defensive tackles for him. He also got an interception. Nearly got a second one near the end of the game. However, it would be a Lions touchdown. Jamal Parker, 6 tackles, 1 interception, and a fumble recovery. So good job by Parker. And then Griffin II with the sack on Nathan Rourke. But even the times they didn't get sacks, they did a very good job. The Bombers did at putting pressure on them. I had actually, in the Bonfire Sports mailbag, asked Chris Walby about his thoughts on the impact of James Vaughter to this D-line, and he says that he really, really thinks that he's kind of bringing back that bookends feeling, as they tried it with Celestin Haba last year, and as much as he had his moments, it just didn't really kind of connect the way that Willie Jefferson did with Jackson Jeffcoat. And so James Vaughter's kind of giving a bit of that Jackson Jeffcoat vibe, which if you're Winnipeg, that's what you want from your defensive line. So all in all, decent job. For Jeremiah Mazzoli, 281 passing yards, had an okay game, was 25 for 44, not the best completion percentage. 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, at least one of those. If you're BC, you don't like it. He was throwing a lot to Justin McInnis and Keon Hatcher. We had talked about this, Rick, that these were kind of the 2 guys he was targeting. Near the end of the game, he started going towards Jackson a bit more, to Aiden Eberhardt, to Javon Katoy. Katoy would get the touchdown. This is the one that's nearly intercepted by Evan Holm, but they would get it. James Butler was decent for them, as he got he rushed in for the 2-point conversion for them. 9 rushes, 44 rushing yards, 4.9 yards on average for James Butler. Sean White was 2 for 2, with his longest being a 43-yarder. And yeah, it was just one of those things where Winnipeg got to a very big lead early on. And again, it was textbook Bomber football. Get a big lead really early, suffocate. For the rest of the game, you can put up a couple points here or there. You might grab a field goal, maybe even a touchdown if you get lucky. But defense. And you'll either prevent the other team from getting anything going, or they will get something going, but by the time they do, it's just too little too late, which is exactly what happened here. BC, nothing in the first, 3 points in the second, 3 points in the third. They finally get a touchdown and a 2-point conversion at the end of this game. But at the end of this game, they got that with 1:36 left in the game. It's just too little too late. Again, it is textbook Bomber football. They went to BC and they suffocated them. That's exactly what they did, exactly the game plan. And so they'll end up winning this by two scores.
That's what happens when you can't just use 2 players.
Yep. Yeah. No, that was a problem. Around. Like if we go to the CFL stats here, just because the one on the score here doesn't show the targets. What was the targets for McInnis and Hatcher?
So for McInnis was 9 for 13.
Yeah, so that's an extra 4.
And Hatcher was 6 for 10.
Yeah, so that's an extra 4 targets per receiver there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Even Katoy, he was targeted. Wow, look at this. 8 targets for Katoy for only 4 receptions. 8 targets for Aiden Eberhardt. Only 3 receptions. That's an extra 5 that they missed. And so if you're Jeremiah Mazzoli, you need to connect on those. You need to connect on some of them, because now some of these were some good defensive plays. Terrell Bonds had a really good one. Jamal Parker had a couple. Marquise Bridges had a few. Evan Holm had a couple. But it was one of those things where there were some of them where this pass, I don't even know where it was going. And so the offensive line of the Lions just needed to, even though they only gave up 1 sack, there were many instances where Mazzoli just had a lot of pressure, and because sacks don't tell the whole story. Mazzoli a lot of these times was throwing this ball out with a lot of pressure on him, And so that's why I don't throw this all on Mazzoli as they struggled with that. And then actually near the end of the game, and this is where we're going to have to see where this goes. So Willie Jefferson would get ejected as he got two player misconducts. So it's kind of like the soccer system, 2 yellow cards, red card, you're gone sort of thing. However, Woodruff, I guess, takes a swing at Jefferson, misses, and hits an official in the head. Now, it didn't look to be a absolutely brutal knockout punch. However, any sort of contact with an official is auto ejection. No stop. It is very much no tolerance. And this is for any sport. You are never allowed to lay your hands on an official, especially intentionally. But this was he was ejected, and there was only 1:36 left on the clock when he was ejected. So there's potential for supplemental discipline here. Now we'll have to see. It might be one of those things where the CFL rules it's not they might either fine him or they might rule it's not necessary because it was accidental. I think he will get at least a fine. He might get suspended. I think the fact that it was accidental though might keep it as a fine and not a suspension, but I think he'll probably get something due to the nature of what it was and the fact that there was hardly any time left in the game. So him getting ejected at that point is kind of meaningless because he misses almost none of the game. So we'll have to see. But Streveler then would kind of knee out the clock near the end, and that would be the end of this game. Is there anything else you got, Rick, for this one? Or
So just a side note, Zach Claris kind of, they did get the win. Mm-hmm. But did we see the old Zach Claris of the old? Because he had 2 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions as well.
Here's my thing, though. Look at when those interceptions are, okay?
Hey, listen.
Zach Claris, I have talked about that Zach Claris is a clutch quarterback. And what I mean by that is that he plays the way he needs to play when he needs to play. Now, I'm not saying that we should just ignore interceptions. I'm not. But I'm just saying, look at the lead Winnipeg had when he threw those picks. I don't know why, but Calero's usually, if he throws a pick, apparently unless it's Grey Cup, it's at the times when he can almost afford to, even though it's obviously never ideal. I mean, if you look at the way that Zach Calero started this game, he buried the Lions in a couple drives. And then it pretty much didn't matter what he did for the rest of the game because the defense was just going to suffocate the Lions.
So the other
obviously,
thing
you
that
hope
I was going to mention, the other thing that I was going to mention is looking at the BC Lions' next 6 games. You have Rough Riders, Montreal, Edmonton, Rough Riders again, and then Hamilton home and home. So before they get to the Hamilton home and home, they could easily go 1-3 against Rough Riders and Montreal, depending on if Rough Riders get injured players back.
You're talking.
But that's just,
yeah. No, it's. We'll have to see. And then week 6 is one of those yucky 3-day weeks. 3-game weeks. But, well, I think that's pretty much all we got. Unless is there anything else you got, Rick? Or I don't have anything else.
Not from me, my friends.
Yeah. So make sure you guys, appreciate you guys for tuning into this video. Make sure you guys leave a like, share it around, and subscribe if you haven't already. If you're listening to this on Spotify, make sure you guys leave us 5 stars. We very much appreciate it. Thank you to anyone and everyone who tuned into the live streams, as we very much appreciate your support there. And we'll probably, I think we might be doing another video either on that will be coming out later today, either on the Dinwiddie presser or on some of the I think we're going to hold off on the Elks branding stuff. I think we may want to get Scout on, Rick, for another video about that, just kind of because he's on the ground in Edmonton, so we may want to get some of that. But We'll probably do one on the Dinwiddie presser, which will be coming out later today. So make sure you guys tune into that as well as our preview that we'll have for week 4 coming out later this week before the Bomber game on Thursday. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace, love, and positivity. We'll see you guys next time.